not us. And I'll never forget one of the last years we went over, because, you know, we went over every year to visit him. And one of the last years, I got in a giant fight with him because he wouldn't listen to me.
And all you wanted to do was...
And all I wanted to... Yeah. Well, part of what our reason for going over there that time, other than seeing them, is to find out how they wanted their lives to be over, what they wanted us to do. You know, what do you want us to do?
Right.
And he wouldn't.
He just wouldn't
No,
say.
it wasn't any of our business.
Right. And then it does turn into your business.
Mm-hmm.
And it was important.
And he would not listen to me. I'd start talking, and he'd go, la 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 la, like that.
Really?
Yeah. And I just...
He was such a baby.
He was. He was just...
He was really a baby.
It was like... Well, it was like my way or the highway.
Yeah. Every time.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I think it was. He never regarded us as adults. He was the adult, and he...
Forever. He was the adult.
Yep. He made the rules.
I just didn't talk to him.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to him because they always wanted to argue.
Well, and there's no way he would have.
Okay?
Very good, thank you.
We're good. Thank you.
Well, you knew it was a setup. If he was going to talk to you, it's a setup. So he could argue with you.
Yeah, exactly. And part of the thing that I did notice is he would change his belief vocally.
Oh, to suit his own mind.
Yeah, just to argue with you.
He was some package.
And it was like, really? So, I don't know.
Now, did he seem like his mom or his dad that you can remember?
Well, his mom was... I didn't ever really know her that well because they lived far away from us. And by the time I got to be old enough to talk to her and carry on a conversation with her, she had bad sugar diabetes and was an invalid. Which again, we took care of her. And Dad would, well, he was the baby. And
literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
How many brothers and sisters did he have?
Like 6. There
Okay.
were 7 of them. And he was the baby. And he was Mama's boy. And he would do anything for her, which I think is wonderful. But he didn't carry on that same tradition for us.
Right. He was very distant and he stand off.
Yeah. Well, he was always right.
Mm-hmm.
Depending. I mean, regardless, he was right. So that was what we fought with him about
That was just a pain in the ass.
forever.
And I got along real good with him. Because we both kind of ignored each other.
We're talking about Grandpa Leroy, by the way. Just so you know.
Yeah.
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 I'm saying to the
Oh,
camera because
yeah.
I decided you're saying too many nice things,
Yeah.
or good things.
Yeah.
So sorry, we have our mouths over our food.
Yeah.
So if there was somebody that you could get to know that you weren't able to, you'd want to with your dad.
Yeah. Yeah. As an adult.
Right.
Because he wouldn't ever talk to me as an adult.
Right. Guard
And-
down.
right.
We're going to talk.
and not make up stories. I mean, tell me your feelings and, everything, yeah.
Are you able to do that with your mom?
Well, the amazing thing with my mom is realizing how she had to act or believe or be to get along with him, because they were together for 60 years. And he was strong enough that he would say, okay, get out. And she thought if he got away with that she'd never get anything from him. And, she had to do what she had to do.
Was divorce ever, if it ever led to that, could that ever have happened? Or just would never have
It's the
happened?
same with all of that generation.
Yeah.
Nobody got divorced.
I think it was definitely a generation thing.
It would just be, he might be with somebody else, but
Yeah.
they'd still be married.
Yeah. Or you hate each other,
Right.
and you live. I mean, my grandmother was, Howard just never hit her or nothing, but
Right.
he beat her down.
Right.
She never did nothing. Now there's my mother.
Well, did you know, and this is different, when they're talking about all the marriage and rights and stuff, I think it was as close as 1983, when you got married, in the whole country, the wife was looked at as property.
Really?
It was a case, and it was as close as like 83, that it was like marriage. So when they say marriage, is a sanctity and men shouldn't get married and stuff, it's like no. Women were property.
Yeah.
And it was they were property, and up until recent times, and it was this big case. I think people weren't thinking of that, but it was still on the books as property.
Well, when you think of all the civil rights that we went through, that was even separate from female. I mean, men and women, totally. That they had to go through their own, and looked on very poorly if you were out there going,
Right.
I might, yeah. Yep.
Hope was the original suffragette.
Was she a suffragette? For
No.
real? No?
She was just a rebel. She didn't give a shit. But back, my God, that was 1952, 3, 4, 5, 6. She didn't care about that.
Well, let me ask, did she care about, did she just want to drink, or was there more to her than that?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, my impression of her, just listening to you talk and knowing what I know, is she was just a drunk.
No.
But I don't know the other part of her.
No. She was very pretty, quite smart, very well liked. She just went bad when she started hanging out at the bar, or working at the bar. That's what she did. She helped my grandfather at the bar. She started waitressing for him at lunchtime.
Party after, you're there, you're party.
And then she would hang around there. But no, my mom was pretty smart, I think. And I think she could have done a lot of things, but but she didn't care.
And that was the difference between my mom and dad. My mom didn't go to college, but she was not, I'm not going to say smart, but she knew a lot of things, but to him, it was all just about him.
She took a back seat.
Back seat, totally.
See, my dad he was smart. He went to college 3.5 years, University of Alabama, and a big university. And then, dumb shit, quit to marry my mom. And he was studying to be a dentist.
But he never made it to a dentist.
He didn't finish up. He got married.
And
Went to
had
serve.
babies.
Well, had a baby. I'm in the service, and
Oh, I don't think
Not
so.
yet. We're still working. We're
No.
good. But you can take that. Thank you.
and I don't know. You think back
Well-
how things could have changed around. How
And
much
see,
different
I
life
think
could have
so
been.
much of it was just the generation. That's what you did then.
And you stayed kind of where you lived. It was a big deal to move and change everything up.
My dad, he lived in Endicott and went to Alabama.
Yeah.
I never quite figured out how the hell he got there.
It wasn't for the service or anything like that, was it?
No, before. No, I don't know.
Well, and see, my dad went into the service, got out, married mom, had 4 kids, and then went and used his service degree money to go to college. And he went to college working full-time and having 4 kids.
Yeah.
So,
God love him.
well, I'll tell you what that did was he majored in philosophy.
Leroy.
Yeah. And that's when his whole Mormonism went right out the window.
Okay.
And,
Well, he got an education.
Yeah.
I saw it, yeah.
but I mean, mom was still a Mormon,
Right.
and he was going, But he did it, again, working full-time with 4 kids.
You realize something? We're only on Brett's first question.
Yes, that's my first. That's okay.
I'm just
You're not
saying.
even on a question, really. We're just going. We're free-flowing. Freestyling. Here, Marsha.
Oh, thank you.
Well, okay. Here, this is kind of, we're still in the theme.
Here, eat my tater tots.
I will.
Okay.
What advice would you give your teenage self, like around 13 or 14? Just like if you could say, you know what, don't worry about this, or maybe do this, or what would you say to yourself that maybe you worried about or did different, or maybe there's nothing, but if you could give yourself advice, if you were sitting right here, what advice would you give to somebody around that age? When it gets hard, when things get different.
Not for me. Give myself advice or someone else advice?
Well, you could say someone else. I think what have you learned? I think it's easy. You could say, okay, to Ella, do this or that. But what would you kind of say, like, I would say, you know what? High school is the most short-lived thing of your life, but it seems like the longest, and you have to do everything and things you don't want to do to please other people during high school. And it's the smallest part, one of the smallest parts of your life. That's what I would say. And you get over things. Things change. Things, you think it's your whole life then, but there's so much more life right after that. That's all.
Well, and I think that's true, but I think it's very easy to get into pleasing friends, pleasing your family, pleasing, what you think needs to be done, when what you've got to learn to do is make yourself happy.
Correct.
Do whatever it's going to take, and it may be hard because it may be something that, I mean, and that's the hard part, is figuring it out.
Well,
if you're unhappy,
but
you got to do it.
yeah, I think one thing that you constantly say, Marsha always says, do what makes you happy, but if you do it, you better own it and fess up that you did it. And own it and be fine with the consequences one way or the other.
That's right.
And I think that's a very good way to look at it. It's like, well, I made my own bed, and now I can get out of it, or this is the best thing, or something.
She's a deep chick.
She is a deep chick.
Well, I think
I've had 25 years of deep conversation.
Deep chickness.
Yes.
Well, I think that's something that it's hard to learn. Is it's all about, I mean, you can decide to do whatever you need to decide to do, but you got to learn what the consequences, or be able to live with what the consequences are.
Right.
And think about that more than what you think you need to do, because you may have a right answer, and if you think about it enough, you couldn't live with consequences. So,
Right.
you know, you got to figure the consequences out first.
Yes.
But that's what's going to have to do, because you need to make yourself happy.
What's Grandpa smiling at?
Oh, no, I was just saying, I don't have to say anything. She'll take care of it.
Well, you can add to it. You don't have to. Okay, here it gets a little deeper. Okay, so then I went to 18-year-olds. Because now, wait, and the reason why I say 18...
I'm trying to think of where I was when I was 18.
Because after the plane leaves, it's a busy day at the airport. 18 is when you're done with school. 18 is you've done everything that you were supposed to. Now you're out on your own. Do you go to college? Do you just do that? Do you do this? Do you do this? Do you work? You know, because all the high school people have gone, or you move on together, or anything. What would you tell yourself? Would you have finished a degree? Would you have started saving money then, or anything?
I think going back to your 12-year-old question.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on my own from the time I was 12.
Right.
So it's different than I think most people that, you know, wait till you're 18 to be on your own. And so I was just, you know, I was on my own, making my own money and doing what I had to do and helping support the family.
Do we need to watch Goodfellas to see what your early life was? Would that help us? Have you seen Goodfellas when they first took him in? A little bit?
No, because
a little bit.
Because he got married young.
I got married when I was 20.
And started
Oh,
having
no.
kids.
This is I'm talking from 12 until he got married.
Oh,
well,
there was a little bit of
from 12 to 18, 19. Yeah, I mean, I ran completely muck.
Well, that's kind of what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I was out all night. We would hang out in the pool room. We would play cards. We would.
I'm sure you ran some money or something for some local guy on the street.
Yes,
and
I did.
If you want to make a couple bucks, or
yeah,
the kids did.
You always help Frankie.
Well, but when I see that, but when I see that, because when you had the parlor, you had talked about people having the pinball machines, and you knew the right people that had the pinball machines.
Thank you.
Well, who had the pinball machines? Basically, another word for mob type people.
Well, I mean, the guy that owned the bar that was Tony the Eyes.
Right, Tony. See, exactly.
Yeah, I always laugh because once we got together and he was telling me about some of his friends' name, and here, Tony the Eyes, or Angelo, Master Angelo, and
she loves.
I love that one, to say that one. And what's the other one?
David Scarpone.
Dave Scarpone.
See?
And
you know Dave Scarpone, yeah? Didn't you ever meet him? No.
See, I don't. There's a few things I remember about that time.
Well, and I went to school, and my friends were Susan Ibsen, Sally Hansen. You know, I mean, so different.
Okay, so going into your, this isn't what I was going to ask, but where did Joe, Italian Joe, come into the picture in very white,
Well,
Utah? I mean, where did he come from?
well, I graduated from high school and had to get a job, and went and got a job at 18.
Pardon me?
Another RC?
No,
No, all RC out.
float on the thing.
You want to float away?
No, thank you.
And he's got water.
No, we're fine, I think. You want dessert?
No, not right
No.
They're cutting me out,
now. Okay,
so I'm going to send you over with Whitney.
Okay.
Cool? Okay.
right.
All right.
Thank
nice to
you.
meet
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.
I went to work at Fred Meyer. No, not Fred Meyer, Grand Central, but it's just like Fred Meyer. And like a little department store. And Joe worked there. And he was a little Italian guy. And not that that made any difference there, but he was a little bit older.
Well, he
and-
was different from some of the boys there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And again, a little bit older, but I just kind of fell for him and manipulated to meet him and manipulated to be in the
He was
parking lot when he got off work.
We got extra ones, don't we?
Well,
kind of thing.
I mean, so he was different than the boys,
Yeah,
there, right?
yeah.
I mean, that was a.
And again, a little bit older. And the thing that was so great is when we got married, of course, we had a Mormon wedding. And in a Mormon wedding, you stand in line. And I had like 5 girls in line.
Mm-hmm.
And people go through line. They give them a drink, a punch, and a piece of cake, and then they're done and out the door. That's the only wedding I had ever been to. I didn't know that, And Joe went through it with me and was like, didn't say much. And then after we got married, his sister got married, like 5-6 months later. And they had an Italian wedding where everybody came and brought,
wine was
yeah,
flowing
oh
and
yeah, oh
everything
yeah.
and music.
And I just went, wow, this is. I mean, it was just a completely different life than I had ever been around or anything about it, and that's what the difference was, right there in just.
And Joe really wasn't an Italian either.
Well,
so, I mean,
he was
you could
half.
Say, no, I understand that. No, I didn't mean. No, I mean Italians in Salt Lake City.
Right.
Were not
Right.
Italians
Right.
anywhere else.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's
Right.
what I meant.
Right.
But one of the things that I have since learned is when you're 18 years old, you don't, or I didn't, or we didn't talk about what you need to talk about if you're going to marry somebody or, get serious with somebody. You don't. You think, oh, you want to order the same thing for dinner, and I mean, it was just absurd. And I got pregnant and we got married and we were happy, or relatively, for 10 years. And then I found out that I needed more answers to, or more conversation in my life. And he was not a he didn't talk. We could go out with other couples and he'd be funny and he'd be great, but he was not somebody that would talk to you.
So wait till your kids hear this. That all he had to do was talk to you, and they'd still have him as a father.
Well, no, what they did and what happened with us is I moved out of the house and the children stayed with Joe, and they learned on their own that he was not a conversationalist, that he was not somebody that you could share your thoughts or your feelings with.
Right.
And I look at it now and realize how good that was, because then they could figure it out for me that that's what I needed to, and realize that that's kind of what happened and what they went through.
Yeah.
So that turned out really well. But it was, I mean, you're too young, and that's what I learned.
That you were too young.
I was too young.
You knew nothing.
Yeah, and
You were
neither one of
18.
us. Neither one of us. He was 20. We ended up getting married when I was 19, and he was. I mean, we were so too young that if I remember and think about what I told my children the most was, you got to wait. You got to be older.
Yeah.
By then, hopefully, you'll know more about yourself, know more about not only what you need, but where you want to be, or you're there, or you're headed in the right direction, or something, and not just graduated from high school. I mean, that's just way too young. Way too young.
But you have to admit, you've got something for Italians, right?
Oh, I must.
Okay. All right.
I must.
All right. Okay. See,
I didn't hear what he said.
she's
I've
got something for Italians.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
So,
Let's see. Anything? That might be a little deep. We're not going to say that. Okay. For right now, in your earlier lives, was there something? And I'll give you the example that you gave, that your kids wouldn't know that you did, like when Pat said that he protested the Vietnam War with my mom. Like just something silly like that. Do you remember when we all protested the Gulf War? And Marsha held up a Pepsi can? Do you remember holding up the Pepsi can?
I don't.
When we were in Fullerton?
I don't.
You held up the Pepsi can.
I don't.
Because there was red, white, and blue. Yeah.
Wow.
All went, yeah. You don't remember that?
I
Yeah.
don't remember that.
Yeah, that was kind of like my thing. I got us all involved in that. But we only did it once, maybe twice, but I know we did it once.
Yeah,
So,
I remember that. That was kind of cool. No,
Well, and in my case, I think that's something that comes again when you get older. When you read the paper, when you realize, hear the news, when you know what's going on around you. You know, I mean, I went to school in the late 60s, and all I cared about was who was going to be on the debate team, or, I mean, I needed to be older.
different place.
it was well.
It was. And
But
Salt
you-
Lake,
and a
but
different
Utah
time.
was a different place
Yes.
than the rest of the world, right?
Yes.
It was.
yeah,
And a different time.
and very consuming of the people that lived there. I mean, I don't want to just blame it on everybody else, but I was just not aware of so many of the stuff that was going on at that time.
Right. Well, they did their job. They kept you
Yeah.
guys isolated. That's for sure. So, anyways.
You know, it was funny. I was always aware. Well, we were always aware of what was going on in Endicott. And Endicott was such a dinky little town.
But was it? With
well,
the
it-
triple cities? Cause
It was.
We doing okay?
we're doing good. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
we're
thank
doing
you.
fine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That you never thought anything would go on, but there was a lot of bad stuff that went on there.
Yeah.
You know, and it really was. And you know, when the convention came, you know, nobody realized, but everybody knew that now the convention is the Appalachian Convention, where all the mobsters met.
See?
That's
Didn't
it.
know. See? Another thing didn't know about.
But
Yeah.
every mobster in the United States was up at Joe.
I was visiting Sally Hampton.
You guys, what did you make? Did you guys make things together?
Yeah.
But it was yeah.
That's what you were doing.
It was at Joe Barbara's out in Appalachian, which was just past Owego. and
See?
they were all out there. I
Yeah.
mean, all the big ones. And it's so funny. I was talking to Joe Babar's daughter the following morning, and nobody knew about the raid the night before. And somebody came up to Angie Babar and said, you know, they raided your dad's place, didn't they? And she wasn't even aware of it. And then it just kind of fell into place, and it was a big deal. They rounded up all
See?
all the hoods.
Yeah.
And this hick cop tripped over it.
Yeah.
He was driving around, and I bet I think he was just driving around, and he saw all these Cadillacs and all these cars and everything. He said, "What's going on here?" And he tripped over being a star.
See?
Yeah.
But you didn't know about that? Mm-mm. Yeah, the Appalachian Convention, and that was, well, it was 56 or 7.
So you were 16, 17.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yep.
And it was right there.
And you were hanging out with Sally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was right there.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened to Sally?
You know, I've thought about this before because, and this is deep, but and this is just based on how she dressed, how she was in her family, but I would love to call her or find her because I think she was a lesbian.
And really?
Yeah. And in this little Mormon community that you couldn't have come out to, and I really think I think that's what she was. And again, I would love to call her.
I never heard that before.
See, there's all this stuff.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Sally, yeah. Well, God, you know.
Yeah. Well, and that was it. We all grew up in this little community that we didn't get, and I don't know whether
That
how the
spot's
parents
still
felt.
on there, Brett.
I know. It won't be on there. You watch.
I'm just
Well,
I don't know whether how the parents felt.
Uh-huh.
You know, I know my dad was into, you know, he played stock market,
right,
and he was totally into that, but it wasn't. Again, I don't know what was going on with the parents at all.
One thing, your dad, for being your dad, was always very kind to Lance, and the gay thing was never anything. And I don't even know if I'd come out when your dad was alive.
You know,
but it wasn't an issue. It didn't seem like an issue.
No,
for him.
and it wasn't.
He was but he had what's Brant?
Well, Brant.
Well,
yeah.
Brant.
Yeah.
Who
yeah,
had come and lived
and
with
not
them.
a
right,
nephew
but
or whatever he is.
a great nephew
Or something.
yeah. But very
he
down to earth on that.
He was
which was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
He was liberal on a lot of weird things.
Yeah.
And then he was a pain in the ass and very strict and stupid on other things. I mean, he was really a dichotomy.
Yeah.
He was a complete dichotomy. You never knew where he was coming from.
Well, when I was in, I think it was elementary school, that was about the time that the Mormon church changed and gave blacks the priesthood.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right. Oh, it's okay now.
And I remember my dad wanting me to take a petition to school and have everybody sign, something where, let's get him in, you know. Because he was totally liberal on
see,
on
that's
that.
good to know that.
Yeah.
Very progressive.
Yeah. But,
see?
He was all over the lot. He made no sense at all.
It sounded like he kind of stuck up for that kind of stuff. Like, it's like, don't...
Well, do you know what he was politically?
What?
A libertarian.
Really?
Yeah. I'll never forget he coerced Marie and Tom into having a program or the libertarian.
Like at their house or
Yeah,
something.
at their house, and then Joe and I had one at our house too, and everybody was going, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, it's what my dad wants."
See?
So yeah.
See, we found out something about Leroy.
Yep.
See?
Leroy had a lot going.
See, it
He had a
weaves
lot
in
against
and
him,
out. And,
Yeah, he was.
and it would have been nice to talk to him even more about that, right?
Oh yeah.
More,
well,
delve in.
and when I
He
say
was hard
that,
to talk to, though.
Oh, no, I
when
remember.
I,
It was
and
very
that's
hard.
it. When I say that, I would have to have him be true to himself
Right.
and not be in a position where he would say anything to get you to talk to him, and he
Right.
would take the other
Yeah.
side whether he believed
He
it
would
or
need
not.
a truth
Yeah.
serum. And
Yeah.
if you're going to have that conversation, here's this little bottle
Yep.
you need
And,
to
Yep.
drink. Yeah.
that you wouldn't ever get the
Yeah.
exact thing you
Right.
would hope for.
Because I mean, to this day, I think all the stuff that I knew about him, was that really true, or was it the time that he was in, and
Yeah.
how he felt about until the next month when something else
Right.
came out? I don't know. And I would love to just get with him to know why he thought that, or why he felt that, you
Yeah.
know, and have him be truthful with me, and not on his horse where he's got to say a certain thing. Because I think
See,
a lot of it had to
it's
do
funny,
with
she wants-
how he grew up.
She would like to see her dad again and talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
I have no desire to see my parents.
Yeah.
Really? Even your mom?
No.
Well, and part of it with Dad, and that's what I would think with your mom, would be what made her do, the
Howard.
Howard, yeah.
I wouldn't. I mean, I don't care. I mean, I didn't care. I haven't cared since I was 12 or 13 or whatever.
Right.
Well, and part of Dad's problem was when he went to college and went to philosophy and gave up the Mormon church, he still lived like a Mormon.
Right.
I mean, so there's certain things that you don't just give up when you're raised a certain way.
Good thing we brought our jackets, though.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. But I think the thing with Dad is he just liked to get under everybody's skin, and
Yes.
get them to
He
talk
liked-
about
yeah.
stuff.
I've been part of that.
That's-
Everybody's been
yeah.
part of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he just wanted to irritate people.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
And he did.
He would throw a rock in
Yeah.
to see
And-
where it...
and he
let's-
could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
See
was
where-
good at irritating people.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I didn't talk to him, he was irritating.
But
Yes.
it's funny. He wouldn't talk to Pat. He wouldn't talk to Pat. But by God, he'd call him to find out about football. Well, they said that you needed to do, and he'd call Pat and they talked football for 15, 20 minutes.
Well, I mean, I was always talk to him. I was never mean to him.
Yeah.
And he realized that I was never going to be mean to him, but he's never going to be my buddy, and I was never going to get in a political argument
Yeah.
with him.
Right.
And the only thing I cared about was his daughter. So,
Right.
He knew that, and I knew that, and that's what made it work, really. I mean, because he was no dummy. He was a smart man. He was a very smart man, so...
Well, let me see.
How'd we do? We did pretty good.
Well,
Oh, how many more questions have you got?
no, we pretty much answered some things. I think we'll do like a little family lineage that you know of, just to make sure. But that you might have to write that down for each other. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And where you kind of lived and stuff like that. Just because
Well,
I don't know.
the thing that I'll tell you that it was very my dad's family, my grandfather was a Mormon. And he was born a Mormon, and he came from Mormons, and they were Mormons. And he went on a mission to Sweden, and that's where he met my grandmother, who lived in Norway. And she was not a Mormon, but after they met, she flew over here and met up with him again, and she had nothing. But she came from not a well-to-do family, but a normal family from Norway.